And we are here, Plan C podcast, coming at you on a Wednesday. I forgot what day it was because time doesn't exist anymore. It is the 30th today, so when you are listening to this, it'll probably be 2021. Happy New Year. I am joined by my lovely, esteemed co-host, Cameron.
Yo, what's good?
We just recorded a great podcast with, I would say, I don't want to say politician, but somebody who is running for local office.
City Council,
District 40. It's a great interview. It's a great interview. Y'all should check it out. We put in a lot of time. This is probably the most time we've put in a podcast in terms of preparation. So I don't know. It meant a lot to me, it meant a lot to Cameron. So, thanks for checking it out. Check us out on Twitter, on Instagram, Plan C Podcast. Specifically, that's I think it's Plan_C_podcast.
Correct.
And it's the same thing on Twitter. We are on YouTube as well. Check out our YouTube channel. We do streams, which, by the way, we're doing a stream this Friday, right? On the 1st?
I believe so.
Hey, there we go. So I hope you will have checked that out. Or if you haven't already, check it out then. This is the end of season 1 for the Plan C podcast. And, it's been quite a damn journey. Looking back to I think we recorded an episode last October was our first one. We didn't release it because obviously it's bad. But just looking back on it, seeing sort of where we are now, I'm really happy. And thank you, Cameron. Thank you, everyone who listens. Thank you, James, for your continuing. You're a wizard. You're a wizard, James. I listen to your sound stuff and it's bananas. Anyway, I'm rambling. We got to get to lovely Kenya. We're going to get there. We're getting there. And we're going now. See you there. Hey guys, welcome. And today we are here with Kenya. Lovely, lovely local politician. Why don't you introduce yourself to the Plan Seers? Yeah.
All right. Hey, Plan Seers. This is Kenya Handy-Hilliard, and I'm running to be the city council member for the 40th Council District. And I wouldn't necessarily call me a politician. I think I have worked in every kind of government position you can think of on all levels of government. And I have been of the people, of the community, and of our constituency every single time. And so it's really about taking my community leadership into government. And I call myself a community person. And so it's just really about leading and following and, partnering with community. That's who I am.
I really like that term, community person, rather than politician. It just feels better.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to say grassroots organizer. I feel like that's been kind of used.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not really, it doesn't blend into what I do because I have the technical knowledge of policy and legislative procedure and things of that nature. It's really about the way I operate in that I take ideas from conception or inception to fruition. And it's how to do that through a strategic lens. And it really is organic from the community, just me out there talking to folks, getting a sense of what their issues are. I always say to everybody, you got the people closest to the problem, they have the solutions or they have the pathway to the solution. So why am I sitting in, City Hall or Capitol Hill or in Albany pretending like I know what's going on in the streets when I could just ask people in the streets what's going on and how do I help? And so that's what I see the difference in a politician, someone who's literally using politics as a means to an end. And I'm using community to help focus on bringing government and creating the partnerships with government so that we as the community get what we need and leverage our relationship and power versus, vice versa.
Yeah, that's dope. I definitely like when I hear politician, a lot of the time people kind of, it has like that
got a snaky
that connection.
Undertone.
Yeah, a little bit. When you hear about it in the media, when they talk about politicians, it's usually not a good thing because that's just how our news cycle works. But also that creates that kind of underlying feeling of like they're doing something behind the back. And I really like that you're really with the community and like raising their voices instead of using it to raise your own, which you see in our politics everywhere now.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at my background, it really has been, just being a prosecutor's daughter, right? Like I had always had to be under those bright white lights, trying to, tell the story of the truth and all that kind of, the idea of accountability and transparency being ingrained in me by practice was, just kind of felt natural as I went through government. So I went to the comptroller's office where we, our whole, idea is audit. The comptroller audits the city's budget. It audits the city's finances and all that kind of stuff. So it really is being transparent in the money. Then I went over to the AG's office, and that was really legally the transparency, holding, labor, construction sites accountable, holding, working for worker rights and things of that nature. You saw just throughout, holding Trump accountable was a big thing for us, and creating that type of transparency and accountability. And then when I went over to the Department of Investigation, that is literally enforcing city law and making sure that government workers and that, what are they called? Contractors are actually abiding by city labor law and not violating the public trust by, stealing money or stealing goods and things of that nature, making sure that every transaction is accountable and transparent. So I feel like that has taken me out of the politician realm and put me into a different category, right? I don't say it's good, bad, or anything. I just think it's just, you want the ideal to be open government. So you as the constituent can make appropriate decisions for your life. And I really believe that we can do it. Is it hard? Hell yeah. You got politicians, you got special interests, you got, on all lobbyists and all that kind of stuff working their way to, get their interests. Community can't afford a lobbyist, right? Nonprofits can't afford a lobbyist. So they rely on their local government to make sure that their voices are heard and that the government is transparently working on their issues. It's that simple.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's actually a really great sort of background to because the first thing on our list is literally talking about your background. So, we did some research on your page. Bless you, Cameron. Very nice with the mute. I see you. And so, we saw you worked with the Attorney General. That's just something that's very interesting to me at like a state level because, we hear so much about like, oh, the federal AG, blah, blah, blah. But, sort of on a more local level, what was it like to work in the Attorney General's office and sort of what did you learn taking away from that?
Well, I mean, it was, now I had come from the city level, right? And the city level is kind of the most tangible level to everybody. You know who your mayor is. You're likely going to see him, in front of you, etc. I had previously then worked for Congress. That was so far away. We felt like we were in an ivory tower, just talking about policy and international so-and-so. We had plush carpets and we would say silk toilet paper and all that kind of stuff, right?
Sheesh.
But literally working for the AG's office combined the two for me. Right? It was the intermediary between the local government that is oftentimes underserved, under-resourced, struggling. It's a dog-eat-dog world. And then the federal government, which can literally print its own money. So it's always going to be resourced. The jobs are going to be more secure. Like, people just act different on the federal level. The state level was, especially under Trump, it was illuminating in the fact that you had an aggressive federal government that really had it out for New York State. And so literally fighting, literally kung fu style, all the things that he would throw at us, and going into the courts and making sure that we upheld the Constitution and upheld the state law, and making sure that he was accountable for all the crimes that he did within the state. And it just showed me that when you think about the history books and you talk about civil rights, right, you're talking about, that whole Bull Connor states' rights. Every time you hear the term states' rights, you just think of, states protecting KKK and like
states'
all that.
Right to what?
Exactly, right? And it really flipped it on its head for me, because now we had I would say, truly aggressive government where they were literally trying to get us because we wanted like comprehensive immigration reform, right? Like we are a quote unquote sanctuary city. And, we are one of the most, wealthy cities or wealthy states in the country. And so we created a formidable check for Trump. And then it was like, yo, this is about states' rights. I was like, yo, this is progressive federalism right here, right? And it was like, I never appreciated that, because coming from the South, my family coming from the South, we know why we left the South. Mm. But to have to now to fight for progressivism, and to like have to fight against an aggressive federal government, I got like the realest history lesson anybody can ever think about. But I think when you think on a small scale, one of the biggest things that I learned was development is literally stealing people from their wealth, and that is through their homes. I worked a lot on what we call or term deed theft and mortgage fraud, where little ladies or, little men, young, older men who are fixed incomes and are potentially teetering into foreclosure are preyed upon. And home ownership is really important, especially in communities of color. It's our basis for wealth. And so as you're starting to see people steal people's homes, literally go into city government and fraudulently sign over their lease or over their deed and take it, and then, dare somebody to come after them, that was crazy to me.
That's so bananas.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. And it's literally like it happened on our block. In Lefferts Manor, which is a protected district, or historical district. So imagine on any other unprotected land, what was happening. It's been happening in Bed-Stuy it went crazy. And Canarsie is another place that is happening, but it's coming our way. And so it's literally protecting your homes, which are your basis of wealth. People are stealing that. If you're teetering into foreclosure, what folks are coming in and doing is saying, oh, hey, I know you're teetering in foreclosure. Here, why don't you sign over your deed to me? I will then take your mortgage, or sign over your mortgage and your deed. I will take ownership over your house, and then I will refinance that mortgage to a lower interest rate, and then sign back over your deed.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Here's the thing. It sounds good from far away, but when you are really in a bind and you don't know what to do, this seems like a godsend, right? Like, in your heart, it don't sound right. It's too good to be true. But I'm telling you right now, it has been happening over and over to people that you wouldn't even think would fall for something like that. And what they're finding is, hey, I'm going to give you my attorney. But what happens? You are now complicit in the crime. So if you try to take them to court, you're not going to court. The court is like, well, hello, I'm sorry, but you're now complicit in this crime. So I can't even adjudicate it properly because now you are a co-conspirator because you're committing more, like on a regular day, it's called mortgage fraud because you falsely or intentionally signed over your deed to defraud the bank.
That's crazy.
That's like
People don't realize it.
There's so much. What?
Yep. So it is these kinds of technical things that are decimating our communities that we don't even know are a threat. And so we have been partnering with the local elected officials, Diana Richardson and Zelnor Myrie, who are Assemblywoman and State Senator, have been amazing at creating more information and more resources for homeowners to protect their homes. Because what's happening? I steal your home. If it's not in a protected historic landmark, guess what's happening? I'm knocking it down and I'm building 3 to 4 to 5 story apartment buildings.
Yep.
Market rate. But guess what? That's going to raise the cost of living in your community to the point where you, as either on a fixed income, can't afford a freaking hamburger. It's $15. And I remember, hamburgers used to be $7.50.
Shout out Wholesome.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Like I've definitely noticed, like we all grew up in PLG and we've noticed, especially when I went to college for a few years and I came back and all of a sudden stores that I knew weren't there. There are these apartment buildings that have blown up. I'm seeing 2 to 3 smoothie shops every other block. I'm like, my people don't go here. This ain't my thing. But this actually is a good segue to a question I had for you is, what was it like growing up in Prospect Lefferts Gardens? And also, as you've seen these changes in our community, how has that influenced your views as a community person?
Well, I think that's a great question. I loved growing up in PLG. Like when I went to Smith College in Massachusetts and people called me Brooklyn, right? Like I would rep BK hard money, right? And when I went to college, Lefferts Manor was in Flatbush. When I came back, it was PLG. And I was like, hold on, where's PLG? I don't know what's that. I know Lefferts. I know the Lefferts in there, but like what? And so it was, and I came back in 2005. So it is literally a post 9/11 phenomenon where 9/11 kind of pushed people out into the outer boroughs and development followed all the folks. And, of course, they always say, if you want to know where the next hot spot is, follow the artists because they're going to come in and they're going to triage a place. They're going to come in, they're going to settle, they're going to create art everywhere. It's going to be vibrant. It's going to be attractive. And then comes the money. The money will then come be attracted by the artistic fervor. And then those with money will start to settle, but then slowly raise the cost of living. And that is what you have seen in PLG, Jitmas, Flatbush, Sunset. Like Williamsburg is the first example.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right? Like I used to go to Williamsburg for drag racing. That should tell you how old I
am. Wow.
Exactly. Wow. There was nothing but industrial buildings there. All of a sudden now it's ocean or waterfront views and views of the bridges and and it's unbelievably expensive.
You're 5 minutes from the L train.
Exactly. So it was really growing up in Lefferts Manor was like an oasis in an oasis, and it was safe. Like we used to, our block, Rutland Road, kids used to be out there just on their bikes, and I think there's also a general, generational divide, especially as the internet popped off, because we didn't have all that. We had Nintendo.
We had to play Spud.
Exactly. But like we were out in the streets, we were hanging out, cracking jokes, just running until the street lights came on. Then you saw kind of like a pre-Giuliani period, like right before I got to high school, where it was like you'd hear gunshots in the background. It wasn't quite. You had in 92, you had the Crown Heights riots. So that kind of changed the dynamic of how people interacted with each other. And then, slowly but surely, the racial makeup of Lefferts Manor kind of, people started moving out. And it just got more wealthy. And it's not like we're not diverse. We're still a diverse community. It's just socioeconomically, you start to see the wealth come in. And we became less and less, except for, I would say, certain blocks in PLG. Certain blocks are still like Rutland Road. We get it popping, right? Like,
shout out Rutland too.
Exactly. Rutland too. We will be out in the streets. If you ever come to our block party, it's like the second week, third week in September. We are literally having dinner out in the streets with everybody. So I think it's just a matter of block by block, but in the aggregate, you started to see a change. Things got more expensive. I used to go, coming right out of college, you broke. So you going to the corner store to get a $4.50 hero with, a soda and a pickle or something like that.
Facts.
Now all of a sudden, that's like a $7 sandwich, or it's now a club sandwich, and it's $7.50. Yep. And Michael Che, before he got onto
love SNL, Michael Che.
Right, he did the skit where he was in, I think it was like Lower East Side or something like that. And he went into the store and he was like, Goji berry. What the hell is Goji berry? But that's true. Like you're starting to see these products in these stores. Like what is it? Can I just get a bag of chips? Like, what is all of this? So that is the change that I started to see, and how it changed my perspective. I wasn't mad at it, right? Like, I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little bougetto, so it's like, I like Thai food.
Got to put Jadelle onto that one.
Oh, same.
But the issue, though, is like my friends had to move out, right? Like my community was not benefiting from the wealthier, the development, from all the investment that was coming out. The people who lived here were not benefiting from it. And we were already, 2017, 40% of our district was rent burdened. Right? And it's a direct line that goes to wage stagnation. Wages have not been going up, so you can't pay for more expensive things. But the cost of living has skyrocketed, and that includes your rent. That includes your supermarket, your food costs, and all that kind of stuff. COVID right now has decimated jobs in the area, has really increased the food insecurity, especially in like District 40, which is a big part of Central Brooklyn. Folks are just literally surviving. And if it weren't for like the mutual aids that popped up, that were just like literally operating off of the goodwill and work of the heart of our neighborhood, we'd be hurt even more. And I can guarantee you crime would increase even more. Right? Like, and it would be in places that you would never see. So it really compelled me to say, one, Kenya, how government works, and this government ain't working for your community. Literally, the mayor's affordable housing plan is not working for our community. When you have affordable housing units at the range is 40% to 60% AMI, which is the American median income. The issue, though, on the federal level, that's the federal standard, the federal level, our map includes Westchester and Long Island, which skew richer. than the average income in the city. So that pulls us to a 40 to 60 AMI versus the 30 to 25 that we really are. So you have all these affordable units that's supposed to be the grandiose affordable housing and let everybody work. We can't afford it. So our homelessness, Central Brooklyn is a big feeder to our homeless population. And these are homeless families. And the interesting is that these are workers. These people are working and they're homeless. That should tell you that government is not working for our community.
Yep.
Truly.
So, I mean, that's basically where I am with my community, and why I'm here is to say, I want to bring government back to the will of the community, no longer to the will of the special interests, especially the developers. I hate seeing everybody, everywhere I go, somebody's building some, in between two Victorian homes, you're seeing this ugly ass building.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of seeing it. I'm sorry.
Oh, I totally feel you. Like, my mom lives right near Prospect Park, near the Brooklyn Library, and then they built that huge glass building that out of nowhere in a beautiful brick stone neighborhood, and obviously no one can afford that. It changes the entire demographic of the neighborhood in a way. Like, I don't know, everyone's like, oh, but Jay-Z got the penthouse. Like, ain't nobody care about that.
No, tell Jay-Z to invest in Marcy. Like, stop.
Yeah, we don't need Jay-Z here right now. But yeah, like, one thing is a lot of the people my age and a lot of young people, we didn't really have we weren't that interested in local politics. Mm-hmm. Like, and there hasn't been a lot of
no way.
Really?
Oh, wait, we about to get into that. We're gonna get into that.
Yeah, and I found that a lot of the time it was also that people weren't reaching out to us, but they're also it was hard to find information. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, how have you felt about how local politics have been conducted up until now? And how do you plan to navigate or change how it's been?
Well, I mean, look, if you want to look at it individually, I think individual representatives in government have tried their best. I don't think that many people go into government for the money, right? Like, it is really a service generated excuse me, it's my husband.
It's all good.
Service generated industry, right? Like, you are doing this because you love people, or you love to serve, or you want to make your community better, things of that nature. And so I think you come into it so quote unquote bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But it's also politics. Policy is great, right? Like, you can take an idea and you can put it in legislative language, and you can put it, make it so that it really attaches to to who you want to help. The politics, though, is what gets in the way of that good policy. And politics is only generated by special interest. And I include community. We need to start thinking of ourselves as a special interest group, right? And so we are, but we haven't been. And so because we are not, as you said, engaged, folks, I can say in my community, we have been under-resourced. I don't know where to go. If I want, if I have some dire service that I need, I either have to go to Google or, go to my assembly member or my state senator for help, right? Because I know, one, they're out there, so I know them. Two, they are literally working every day. I can follow them on social media. I can literally hear my assemblywoman on my block yelling through a megaphone, right? Like, I know she's tangible, she's approachable, and I can get those resources. Unfortunately, I could not do that with my council member. And there are far too many local representatives who don't even answer, their staff doesn't even answer the phone. Right? So it's like, if you're not even going to answer your phone, then that means, one, you don't care, but two, that's a reflection on me. That means I'm not as engaged as I need to be, because you ain't scared. Because if I was on your behind, then that means, if the cat's away, the mice will play. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I'm the cat, the community, the voters are cats. If we ain't involved, the mice are going to play to their heart's content. And so I see it as, yes, we did not have the most active and effective representation, but that was our fault because we were not the most active and effective involved, voting electorate than we could have been. And that will then, change the way in which folks come in. So that's the approach that I'm taking, right? I'm taking the approach that I want my community to understand that they are boss. I want my community to understand that I, as your council person, am accountable to you. If I want this job, if I want these benefits, if I want the positioning, I have to work for it. I just don't get it on the election day. I have to work to make sure that I produce for you because that's what I ran on, right? Everybody's running on, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But if all you do is vote and not follow up on their vote,
that ain't it.
Then you ain't going to get it. And then you're going to sit there and you're going to say, well, they don't care. Why should I even get involved? It makes no sense. It's when you do that, you do yourself a disservice. And I bring this back to you guys, your generation, Gen X or Gen Z.
I don't know what it is specifically.
Yeah, I know. It's like
we're Gen whatever.
We're blending.
Exactly.
But the idea is y'all ain't with the shit. Excuse my language, right? Like
you can curse.
Y'all don't. I'm sorry. I read something that said it's a sign of intelligence. I feel like that was written by somebody who cursed. But
a very sarcastic person.
Yes. But the idea is that, your generation has been so closed off by government, where it's so not accessible. You don't have a future there. We're not working on climate change as we should be. So you literally will not have a globe to be on, right? Like we're not talking about, my generation. I'm a millennial, but I was literally on the cusp between Gen X and millennial, right? So, I ain't gonna claim it all.
Not gonna play millennial all the way. I feel that.
But we are not gonna get, we're in danger of not getting Social Security. It's a Ponzi scheme for us. We're paying into a system that we know we're not gonna benefit. Y'all ain't even thought about, right? Yeah. So it's like, you're at a point where it's like, if I don't even see myself reflected in my local government, in my state government, and my federal government, we need to burn this all down. And so at least I can help build it back up, right? And so that is the approach when I want, when I want to bring, I was calling Colin, Colin, I need you. I need young people. Talking to you, Cam, I need young people to come in and really set the stage and the standard for your involvement. I can tell you to come in, but if you don't come in, I can only go with the people who are addressing me, right? Who are telling me their issues, who are telling me what they want and what they believe in. If you 17, about to be 18, you have a future. If you're 16, you know what I'm saying? In the next 2 years, you're still before the next voting cycle, right? You will be 18 by the time it's the next voting cycle. Tell us what you want. But first you need to know what to look for.
Yep.
And that's what we're saying to folks on the street. When I'm talking to y'all, I'm on this podcast, I'm telling y'all what to look for is literally walk down the street. Do you like stepping over garbage? Do you like the fact that you've got garbage literally flying out of waste baskets because it doesn't have a top? Do you like damn near breaking your neck on, unshoveled ice because a property owner hasn't shoveled his closed store? Do you like the fact that your business corridors are struggling and that, we don't have the type of access to, entrepreneurship or business or art or culture? There are certain things that in our community that if you walk down the street and you're like, that would be a nice gallery. Well, where to go? Oh, I don't really know where to go. All right, let's start thinking about how to make this an art gallery. You're going to need your government for that.
Yep.
Right? If you were sitting here saying like, damn, yo, I just learned how to drive because I'm a New Yorker, so we learn late.
We are both late on that. We are both.
Right?
Oh yeah. I drive my bike.
You don't
that's
have
it.
to. But as a driver, you're looking around like, there's no parking. What kind of infrastructure is this if there's no parking? Or, since we do need to reduce our carbon emissions with cars, if you can't get to work on time on the train, that's a problem. Everybody thinks New York is this like, ultra liberal bastion. But at the end of the day, we are conservative about our money. We are a hustler city. And if you get in the way of me getting my paper, then we got a problem.
Yep.
Socially, I don't give a crap what you do. Right? Like,
don't fuck with the money.
Just don't mess with my money. And that's the transportation system. Our transportation system has been messing with people's pockets for a very long time. But because we don't have a large-scale voting base, especially in central Brooklyn, we only, last election cycle, 22% of our electorate voted. So
I did not know that number.
That's pretty bad.
It was more this election cycle, the 20, because presidentials bring in way more people.
Yeah.
But our last local, that's the reason why the current councilman won again.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was able to solidify a larger number of that small pie.
Yeah,
but if the big pie were to come out, then we would be able to erase a lot of the ills, especially transportation, especially development. When you talk about education, if we came out, especially our young people, and said, "All right, y'all, we not playing no more."
No, for sure. Like, I definitely have realized that I really like what you said about like young people taking initiative, because I find a lot of the time people my age, like when I was in college, everyone has all these grand ideas. We're so for everything, but at the end of the day, it's all talk. Like we don't like my generation is the best at complaining and not doing anything. Like it's unfortunate to say, but the truth is that we really don't put our money or our energy where our mouth is.
We just tweet about it or make a cryptic Instagram post and we move on.
Yeah.
It works. But see, don't discount that because of the internet age, because of social media, your elected officials are more accessible than they've ever been before. Mm-hmm. Why? Because all you have to do is tweet at them.
It's true.
I have a social media, just on my campaign, I am looking for comms directors who have social media experience, because in a COVID world, you can't be out in the streets, shaking hands and kissing babies anymore. So now you got to literally be on the interwebs, as we say in Flatbush, right? Like you have to be out there communicating with folks, and a tweet will be more effective and with a faster conduit than writing a letter.
Speaking of your Instagram real quick, do you just want to plug that? So if people are listening and they want to, check out what you're all about?
Sure. My Instagram is Kenya for the People, FOR the People, 2021. And my Facebook is the same, Kenya for the People, FOR 2021. But for some reason, my Twitter is Kenya #4 the People.
Ah, okay. I got to make sure I follow the Twitter.
Yes, come through with the tweets.
I'll do so.
Yeah.
You're going to get 3 new follows at the minimum.
Facts.
I didn't buy them, no.
True.
Hey, that's what matters.
True. We're on the same point, actually, one of the things I also realized is that, we saw a lot of people come out this year for the election, and even a lot of young people come out. And I found that a lot of the time, people my age are also very focused on the more federal issues, and they don't necessarily look into some of the local issues. Like even people that I've grown up with around the community aren't necessarily focused on the agenda to make their lives better in their immediate circle. And so I really appreciate you saying people should take initiative to the things that they see around them when they walk outside. And I wanted to ask, because a lot of the time, even I sometimes have a problem, is that I don't necessarily know where to go to kind of like express my opinions or express my views. And there's no necessarily like an actual community for young people to really gather. And I was wondering if you had any advice for young people, what they can do right now to be heard, what would you tell them?
I would tell them keep on social media. Your local elected officials literally hire people to scour and figure out what's going on online. And don't forget to directly address whomever you think. So, I mean, one of the real things, it's not just young people. I think we just post the 70s took civics out of school. So people don't understand what each level of government does, what area affects which part of society. And so part of our campaign is to really create spaces where you all can learn that, right? I want, regardless of where I end up at the end of this campaign, I want our community to be more engaged, more educated, and more empowered to take their destiny into their own hands. So knowing what a city council person, city council is really simple. I have to tell myself, KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. It is literally your streets, your clean streets, your public safety, your street lights, your city budget. It's your, we have discretionary funding. So like how to supplement the funding of, different initiatives and programs throughout the district. It is your legislative. So any kind of city related legislative administration, right? Your federal government really does not affect your local in very direct ways. Your federal government is your money people. They're sugar daddies, right? They give block grants. And then the governor is one of the most powerful players in this, because they decide how much money, what's the protocol, what's the parameters that you can then give it. And then your locales are the administrators. We just administrate the programs that, you need. Hold on 1 second.
All good. Quick shout out to you listeners out there. We ain't cutting this. We're chilling. We just hit we're over 1K total streams on apps alone, and that's really exciting. So quick shout out to y'all. Back to the pod.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, my battery's about to die. But yeah, so your state government is your most powerful. They do all of the, streamlining of what, they answer the what, right? Then your local government is just the how. How are you going to get it to the people? You're gonna get it through HRA. You're gonna get it through Department of Homeless Services. You're gonna get it through, they are just the repository and administrators of whatever the state determines. So your city budget for the council, legislative, just kind of looking at the city constitution, and then it's frankly your bully pulpit, excuse me. So you have a platform. How are you going to use that platform? Press conferences, op-eds, literally yelling in the street, galvanizing community members to rail against the mayor, right? Whatever it is, you have a leadership position that you can then bring suffering community members to the table to then negotiate what's going to happen in the future. And then lastly, it's investigative, your hearing process, right? Making sure agencies are doing what they're supposed to be doing, making sure that the budget is negotiated. Budgets are moral documents. So making sure that your morality is reflected through that. And that's why you saw the police, defund the police become such a big issue. It's you put your money where your priorities are. If you ain't trying to really address how the police budget is adjudicated, and if they're the most resourced out of all agencies or most agencies, then that should tell you maybe your rhetoric about kumbaya, everybody get along, is not really, if you're not willing to take money away from that and put it into education, right? So looking at the budget and being able to call it out or vote against it, or whatever maneuvering you can do in your given power. That's what a city council member do. I I can't go over there and mess with the post office. The post office is under the jurisdiction of your council member, Congress member. So you have to know, and it's really important for us to really study this, because you have to know which levels of government has which functions in society, and how you then can leverage either your relationships, create relationships, or leverage your power, your vote power, to get the resources from each level of government.
Yep.
So that's it in a nutshell. We just have to make sure that we do the work. And y'all, I mean, I really do give it to y'all. Y'all are not with it. And y'all are really trying to learn, right? Like, this is the most engagement I've seen from young people in a very long time. And I've been around for a minute. So it's like, it really is capturing that energy, making sure that you guys are equipped with the information that you need, and to everybody's, y'all may come out there and be the force that you need, because millennials are like, nah, we're a microwave generation. We ain't waiting 20 seconds. Y'all ain't waiting 10 seconds. So it's like,
results now.
Right? Like, if you're not doing what I need to do, I'm gonna run against you now. So like, and that's where you go. You're starting to see young 20-something, early 20-somethings coming into government and just running, right? Like, I think there's in the 40th council race, there's he's like 23 or something like that, right? Like, there are going to be more. The more educated and engaged and empowered you are, you gonna come up and be like, nah, son, I'm gonna take my Twitter rant and I'm gonna actually put it on YouTube, and we gonna then collect on Instagram, and we gonna vote this mofo out, right? So you're there. You just need the tools. And so that's what I want to do. I want to provide you all with the tools.
So what do those sort of opportunities to the 40th district, does that look like to you?
So, I mean, I think it's one, we want to get on your campaign. We want you on the campaign, right? Like, where you want to volunteer, y'all, where you want to create, like, I've been trying to recruit y'all to do a young people's forum. So that literally I don't believe in my own platform, right? Like, I've been around, I understand the issues and all that kind of stuff, but who am I to tell you what your problems are, how you want to see your community?
I like that.
I'm supposed to be your operative, right? I'm supposed to go in and carry your water in a legislative and budgetary manner. So tell me, y'all can vote. Some of y'all can't vote, but will vote one day. Right? What is it that you want to see? Is it clean streets? Is it, public safety? Is it education? Like, what is it? So, creating spaces where we can have large scale conversations where you can just feel like you're being seen, you're being heard. And we actually take that as part of an agenda to accomplish, literally check the boxes, to show that you are not just being catered to or placated, that you're actually creating buy-in from young people, because y'all are actually the ones who are going to do the work. When I need somebody on the ground to kind of like help me paint, a wall or something like that, y'all are going to be there.
I'm your wall painter.
Exactly, right? Like, if I need somebody out on a street cleaning because they cut the sanitation budget by a couple of $1 million, y'all are going to be out there sweeping with me and cleaning up, right? And so it really is about collecting that energy. And the forum is one. The campaign is another. It's also like, being loud and proud, right? Like, Movement for Black Lives has created a space where people can actually learn from people not caring anymore, right? Like, Black people just being like, yo, I'm tired of holding this in. Right? And then you start to have those conversations, creating those spaces where we can have those conversations, inviting elected officials to come. They're not always going to come to you, right? And you should know the power in telling somebody to come to me. You can't expect it if, closed mouths don't get fed. You can't expect them to come to you. You have to tell them, I want you here. And if they don't, they need to understand there are consequences for not. So it's just these conversations.
So
I teach the babies. So, we want to make sure that y'all are fully equipped to take over this place when it's ready.
Appreciate that. You had mentioned Black Lives Matter, and that sort of brings me to another question we have where, a year ago, literally 1 year ago today, there's so much that we think, or there's so much that we were not thinking about that we are now thinking about now in a way that I think it's sort of different from year to year, just because we have been impacted by so many things
at once.
Yeah, literally, right? And so for me, it's just like, I know my perspective has changed, but as a community person, see, I almost said the P word. As a community person, sort of how has the events of the last year/6 months really sort of changed your outlook and changed what you want to be doing?
Well, I mean, literally, as of July 2020, I was working. I was working in the government. And I was, that is the reason why I quit, was the culmination of everything. And then having a backseat to see how messy our government really is and how we are not forward thinkers. We are reactive. We are a reactive government. We're not a forward-thinking government. And so when COVID hit, to sit there and see how we were literally bumping each other's heads trying to put together a work-from-home policy for the entire city government, when that had been something that DCAS had been, folks in DCAS had put up as a future policy, and it had been shot down multiple times. Why does it take an emergency for us to think about these very practical, flexible work environments when before we shoot it down, right? That should just be the example of why we are so rigid in our future orientation. Then you had remote learning, which for any parent or caregiver was a hot mess it sounds bad, but to take care of your own kids for 24 hours a day, right? And then have to be a teacher and, work at the same time, teach your kids and make sure that they have the type of structure that they used to have in their school system, but also be accountable at work and be a super person. That was the trauma that just that created alone literally has women, especially women, but some men leaving the workforce to just if they're blessed enough to have a 2-partner home, they're leaving the workforce to just take care of their kids because it's just too much in the same space for too long. So you had that was crazy. But then when the George Floyd incident happened, we had, if anybody who was in central Brooklyn, you could cut the tension with a knife. It felt like an occupied zone because with the protests outside, you had, I remember I was sitting outside and all of a sudden 3 or 4, then 5 helicopters just started hovering over.
That was so trash.
It was crazy because I was like, what's going on? Come to find out, the protest is happening over there on Church and Bedford and Bedford. And then that's where they lit up the police car. But the entire community was under occupation because cops were everywhere.
Yep.
And then you had this escalation, and I'm at DOI, so we had NYPDIG has oversight authority over the NYPD. But here's the thing, we couldn't just go in and do what we had to do. There are 4 other agencies that have oversight over the NYPD. So imagine you have top chefs in one kitchen trying to cook their little piece of the meal, and they're bumping into each other. They don't like each other because they got to share. They don't want to share budgets. They don't want to share information. Everybody wants to kind of keep their hands clean in their own jurisdictions. But we can't do nothing. So that's why almost 7-8 months later, six months later, you saw something come out of DOI about the protests that happened in June. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Why the hell do we have one city agency? Why don't we have one city agency that does all the things the 4 other agencies do in one? What's that? That's politics, y'all.
Bureaucracy
at work.
It's so bureaucratic, it's not even funny, but it gets in the way now. This is why we can't be forward thinking, because you have too many hands, too many pots, and it's causing the retrenchment of government. And so it's like, why aren't we thinking these things through? It seems as though politicians come in, they bring these legislative ideas, they don't talk to the agencies, and I can tell you firsthand, they don't come in and talk to the agencies about whether this is practical or not. It sounds good in a soundbite, and they definitely use it, but in practicality, they don't fund it. There's no budget line. People don't understand, like, yo, I thought so-and-so did this crazy progressive bill, and why isn't this agency following through on it? Well, guess what? Each budget line is each person that is assigned to a budget line. I cannot take one person who's assigned to another, tasks and standards and all that kind of stuff and put them to something else. So you have to create a budget line for them to hire someone to adjudicate that piece of legislation. Well,
Got it.
So guess what? That nice little piece of legislation stays up in the ether until OMB, who is our Office of Budget Management, until they give a budget, until they assign a budget line and some funding, or you have your council assigns a budget line for that funding. But if not, guess what? It's going to stay there. I say that to say that, government is just way too big. And so that is what has prompted me to come in and say, yo, we need to really fix this to make sure that money goes from the council, the budget, it goes from the mayor to the council, approved by the council, to the agency. And that agency has all the equipment it needs to run that money from the top all the way down to the worker who administers the mission of the agency. If you let it go on right now, all the executives and contractors are sucking up that money. And so the workers are not able to administer the mission of the agency. And you're sitting here like, yo, I'm trying to DHS, where you at? Right? Like, why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z? We have all this large homeless population. What's going on? Well, they don't got money. Why? Because they got 5-6 different executives who are sucking up most of that funding.
No, for sure. You mentioned education, and a lot of our viewers are in school or recently graduated, and a lot of people that I know are going into long distance learning, and there are a lot of problems that are coming out of that, especially when it comes to public schooling, because some students, if they're in a really nice school, they might have iPads and everything's smooth, or laptops, while other students don't have anything, and all of a sudden long distance learning becomes almost impossible. As well as like stuff like getting like family involved. Like a lot of the time parents can't even necessarily do anything for their kids in these types of situations. So I was wondering if you had any plans relating to the education crisis that we're kind of facing, and we're going to probably have to continue to face for the next year. Yeah.
I mean, I think at this point it is, I keep saying this, but we need an overhaul of our education, our public school, right? Like at this point, I can tell you in our neighborhood, our public schools have been underserved and under-resourced for a very long time, since I was a kid. And so we are not competing in that school market, right? You have people who have means, who work all the time, who can't take time from their busy schedules of affording to live in Brooklyn to take that extra time to then invest in their public schools. So what do? They take that extra income and then they go and send their kids to private schools, right? Because they know they're paying for an education and they don't have to worry about that. And they can just continue to work to afford everything else that is literally skyrocketing in this area. I plan on bringing the investment from community. And what does that mean? In the immediacy, it is looking at who's here. We have a whole, District 40 has a wealth of arts and culture folks. And I'm of the mindset that when you put arts and genuinely put arts back in the schools, you create a creative thinking or critical thinking base. Because I'm over here looking like, yo, look at those colors. What does that say to you? Look at these lines. How does that reflect on X, Y, and Z, right? It creates those critical thinking skills that one needs to survive and to actually, like, you know, when you see Trump and all his people, that's when they took out education out of schools, right? Like that's when they took art out of schools.
All my homies hate Betsy DeVoe.
Right? Oh, for sure.
So it really means bringing arts and culture as enrichment programming into our public schools in District 17, 18, and 22. Creating that community in exchange. We have a retired teacher base here. We have a retired nursing base. We have a retired professional base. We have a working professional base. For those who have time, why not invest their talents, mentorship, et cetera, into enrichment programming so that our kids come out knowing that there's an entire world of industry for them to look into. Mm-hmm. It's really important for me to make sure, and this is not necessarily a city thing, but when you talk to curriculum is a state level conversation, but working with the state colleagues to make sure that our curriculum is more child-centered, right? Instead of teaching towards the test.
Yes.
Make sure that we bring trades back. Coding is a trade.
Facts.
Right? And so when we're talking about jobs of the future, we need to make sure that folks understand that tradesmanship is just as good as going to a liberal arts college. Right? And to leave here with a skill that you can commoditize is going to be so beneficial for our community that we can create a sustainable economy inside our district just by investing in our schools.
For sure.
So it's a whole bunch, but it really is bringing the community back into the schools, making sure that I am the bridge for the old and the young to make sure the transference happens, so that they know not only are they in a loved, cherished community, but that they too have a responsibility as students to do the best that they can, because you have a whole community waiting for them to invest in them when they come out. But you got a whole bunch of DOE issues too, but we don't got enough time.
Yeah.
Shout out Clara Burton High School, took my SAT there. All right, Cam.
Yeah. No, I love that you say that, because like when I was in high school, the idea of going to a trade school is not even something that teachers would even bring up. Mm-hmm. And especially I was very fortunate enough to go to a school that had the arts, and then I finished my education in the arts, but a lot of people around me didn't even know that going into the arts was an actual, like, even an option.
Yeah.
You know? And
think about way back in the day. I don't know if y'all are really into it, but like, it could be either my age or reality, but I think rap music ain't as good as it used to be. Why?
It's not.
we were
more of it
that last night. Oh my God, it's been diluted.
Thank you. But that's because they took arts out of the schools, right? Because you used to be able to understand real metaphors, real similes, right? Like really going into depth and transferring your trauma and your pain onto paper and then reciting it back to a dope beat, right? Like that was where it started. And you just get this cookie cutter kind of, I call it mumble rap now, because you can't understand. There's no poetry anymore.
It's barely English. It's barely Ebonics. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, but I think that is a direct reflection of our education system. Because if you can communicate, if you know how to communicate in varied ways, your poetry, no matter whether it's going to be, in art, whether, it's going to be through words, whether it's going to be, through sculpture, there's a sophistication there that is undeniable.
Yep.
And it becomes transferable. That's why old school rap is global. Because people understand the technicality, the craftsmanship that is in old school rap. And now it's just digitized and bought and sold. That's it. So thinking about the expression, we all traumatized after COVID now, right? Like, we all need expression in some way, shape, or form. Why not use this opportunity to bring back trauma-based expression? So that it's cathartic for all of us. So that's another thing that, being trauma sensitive and allowing arts and culture to be the foundation for that. And then that will then create a larger economy that we can then plug into the community.
Yep. In that same vein, I actually also want to talk about, there are a lot of, as you said, like artists usually are where the money comes. Like if an artist goes someplace, money comes afterwards. And I found that in our community, in the 40th district especially, we see there are a lot of young creatives and young artists, but it's very hard to make a living as a creative in this current climate. And especially as the prices are rising, like how is like a young artist, 22, 23, going to move out of their house? Like, where are they going to really?
Exactly.
And so I really wanted to ask, how do you plan to get artists involved and helping the community and making sure that they have a way to be seen and survive?
So I'm glad you asked that, because it's really, as I said earlier, in terms of like bringing our arts and culture subculture out into our business corridors, right? And creating that economy where not only are we bringing people to the streets because, you hear jazz music or you hear live band on Parkside Avenue, you want to like stop and like listen and chill. And if you like it, you're going to go out to the stores and buy and things of that nature. So we need to do the same thing with our art, our individual artists, creating forums and opportunities. We don't have much open space or public land, which is something that I really want to work on. But like creating streetscape opportunities for artists to showcase their work, right? To have an arts festival, a perennial arts festival where we can attract everyone from all over to purchase or to, admire artistic endeavors, however it may express itself. To create forums and opportunities for creatives to, either whether enrichment programming where we can create stipends for folks to kind of have that like steady income while they're out there trying to, break into the scene. Or it's also like, we were thinking, we had an arts and culture platform discussion. And one of the things that came out of it was connecting young artists to homeowners and having their work showcased on blocks. Mm-hmm. And so you have like a walking installation on each of the blocks. It's a beautification, idea, but it's also a way in which, you can then sell. We can create, a digital marketplace. If you like what you see, come and buy it, right? Like there are ways, and to talk about this as a local artist who grew up here and, and, we also have, really, really big wigs who live here in the arts and culture industries. And so it's like creating a repository of who these individual artists are or creatives, who the bigwigs are, and creating a District 40 Arts Council, where we are all together talking about not only how we're going to invest in our community, but also if I'm a big studio exec and I'm looking for, actors and actresses in for a movie, and I know there are certain actresses that live around the corner, letting them know, hey, if I'm looking for, I have an idea of this new cartoon, new Boondocks, as we talked about.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm looking for a cartoonist. Well, I know Cameron from around the corner, right? So it's like, and he's dope. So maybe we want to kind of bring him in to think of ways we could do. So there is an economy here. There's a sleeping underground economy that if we just bring it up out of the shadows, I think we can create the type of partnerships that are going to put real money in people's pockets and create these cyclical economy where you can, once you get that deal, you're going to pay your rent, and that landlord, that your parents or that property owner is going to then go to Lincoln Market, and then that Lincoln Market is going to pay the person who lives down the block, and then they're going to go to Amy Ty, and then so it's just like that money literally circulates multiple times within the community, instead of what you're seeing now is these bigwigs hiring people from Manhattan. Then people go to Manhattan and they go into their local market. That local market is owned by somebody in Jersey. So then they spend that money in Jersey. We don't get the benefit multiple times. How do we create the currency where that money is reinvested in the community over and over and over again? I guarantee you, we can be a diverse and, educated Park Slope where we leverage our vote and our money to the point where elected officials not only come for money, like we in a strip club, but they actually do our bidding, and they're scared to just come in and just do what they want because they know there are people here who are going to hold them accountable.
That's the 40th, baby.
In the 40th.
I really appreciate that, because there's not a lot of talk about usually artists getting involved in things and really being able to make a living despite them having such an influence in culture. And I also definitely want to there are going to be a lot of people that aren't necessarily from the 40th district, but I know I got some people that are going to be listening to this from Washington, maybe from wherever.
It needs to happen everywhere.
It needs to happen everywhere.
And don't get it twisted. DC is gentrifying like a mother right now, right? So there are ways where it's not gentrification, it's revitalization, right? You can keep that money there, but you can keep the old school stakeholders too if everybody just invest in keeping them there. And that it makes a better economy overall, because we are literally in threat of being Williamsburg, where it's becoming more and more grocery stores or chain, what are they called? Pharmacies, right? They can afford that big rent. All the little, novelty shops, all the little young, hip and artistic clothing and artists, and with all, it's like an entire experience. That kind of shopping is pushed out of Williamsburg. Right? Yeah. They can't afford it. So how do we make sure that we're all invested? Because if the attraction goes, it's going to be old people with money who, are just going to pass down generation, and it's not going to attract people in the same ways as the next new thing, which would probably be like East New York, Brownsville.
Yeah. Yeah, so people not in the 40th district, make sure you got a politician, or not a politician, a community person like Kenya, to make sure that you got your stuff handled and that we can really circulate this money everywhere. And I really want to, we're getting towards the latter half of the pod, and I want to kind of get into what you're going to do in the future. And it's our last section called Kenya in the Future. And so our first question is, what would be the first thing you focus on if you were elected to the city council?
The first thing I focus on is really, one thing I noticed that elected officials don't do, they don't just say thank you, right? So for me, it is going to community after community, whether you voted for me or not, and just saying thank you for the experience and really getting an understanding of the collective, communities. I'm doing that now, trying to get a sense of what the personalities of each community within the 40th are and things of that nature. But to just humbly say thank you, we don't do that, right? And here's the thing. What I do is I had already created my platform. So the platform is your sheet, all of the open platforms that we've done. So it literally is going through that and start getting to work and introducing bills off of that checklist, right? Because I've created an accountability and transparency tool for you as the community to follow along on what I'm doing.
You got it.
It's not rocket science. It's actually, we're doing more of the work on the front end instead of the back end, right? Like I don't have to go out because I already did. And you guys told me what you want. Now I'm just executing, and we're creating nuances. We're creating, connections and bringing folks into the conversation, making sure that we create the space for community to get involved with government, and not just government coming in and saying, this is how it's going to be done. I really believe that our elected officials, and you see this in our state, at least on the north side, our state and locals, they come to the community and tell them what's going on, right? Like, I believe in that. I believe that Diana Richardson calls it civic minded, and it's every, the last Saturday of every month. I believe in just coming to the public, District 40, and reporting to say, so this was my first month in office. I had 20 meetings with these folks from the district. They're doing great dynamic stuff. If you're really interested, let's see how we can partner with, this organization or this nonprofit, or, and see how we can get together. This is who we are. So that one, you're coming and operating with me. But two, I'm reporting to you. We're having monthly sessions where I, as your employee, are reporting on all the things that I've done.
Yeah.
I got, we introduced this piece of legislation, this budgetary, this piece of legislation is coming up, and here's what it's about. The budget cycle is starting, and we're going to have a presentation on what the budget is. Participatory budgeting is important to me, so I want to make sure everybody knows what that's about, so we can all get involved and really invest in our community. So it's creating that trust in government again is my first modus operandi, right? Like, it is to create the trust, to show that I am transparent, that I'm accountable, and that we are actually going to work together. Now, it sounds good, right? Like, with so many people from diverse backgrounds, there's always going to be issues, and not everybody's going to agree, and I'll be in tight situations. But as long as I am transparent with you about that, we can make better decisions as a community.
That's
and I need to just create those spaces so that we can then make better decisions as community. That's it. And then I'm running again in 23 because we have redistricting. So city council members have to run for the new districts.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I'll break it down. We have 4 years of critical elections. 2020 is our presidential election. Yay, we got rid of Trump. But we have Biden now. 21 is our city elections. Your mayor, your public advocate.
Bye, Bill.
Yes, thank God. And then your city council. Then in 2022, you have redistricting, where they take those census numbers and they have to now reapportion. The state has to now reapportion the districts, your congressional districts, your state legislature, your state senatorial, your assembly districts, and your council districts. They're all going to be reapportioned to the amount of numbers. New York is slated to lose either 1 or 2 congressional seats because we lost population in the last 10 years. So we now have to reapportion those districts. Then in June of 22, or it's like beginning of 22, then we have people running. So your congressional members, your governor, those folks are running. In governor, not so much because he has the whole state lines don't change, but your congressional and your state have to run for the new reapportioned districts. And sometimes that means you're getting a whole new carve out of communities that you didn't normally have before. So that just changes the game in the dynamic of what we advocate for. Then 23, your newly elected 2022, who starts in 22, has to now run again in 23 for the new council districts. Then 24 is your next presidential election, which Biden says that he's not running against, and then that just creates a whole new hoopla. Oh no, I mean, you ain't gonna have Kamala right here, who is literally biting at his ankles. Like,
oh yeah,
she ain't gonna let him run again.
I don't know if he has another election left in him. I don't think that's gonna be a thing.
Hey, different podcast. Different podcast. But
so that's that in a nutshell of what is the lay of the land and why young people are so important, because you start now, by 2024, you are over 18 and you are voting for all of these things. So you really want to make a plan to say, okay, I may not vote if I'm 16 now, I may not vote in the next 3 election cycles, but I can help and engage. So by 24, when your presidential, your congressional, and your state legislature is up for grabs again, you have a keen sense of what's going on, what's at play. Brooklyn politics right now, I'll tell you right now, is if you're a Game of Thrones fan, it is the Game of Thrones.
Oh my God.
And so your involvement now can literally, dictate who gets that throne. And I always say that development is the allegory, or the White Walkers are the allegory for development, because that's the existential threat.
Yeah.
Right? You got the in-squabbling of your elected officials, but outside, the cost of living and wage stagnation is really going to determine what the electorate looks like in the next 4 years.
Got you. Yeah. We usually throw a bit of a hardball question in the middle of this, and okay. Our question is, what do you think you would struggle with the most if you got elected?
What I would struggle with the most, I think where the beauty and diversity is, I think there's also trouble, and trying to get people with varied interests aligned. And I think that is we want to maintain the diversity, but we need to also work on the unity. We have not been a unified district for a very long time. And that's why you can see interests come in and pick people off depending on their interests.
Yep.
And so it really is a matter of creating that unity, which is for 30 years, I'm 37, right? Like moved here when I was 3. So for that long, we have not been a succinctly unified district. And so I think to undo 30 years of disunity is not going to be easy at all.
That's a fantastic response to that.
We are so divided. Like not even like locally, yes, but just like as a people in general, I just feel like we're so divided.
Everything is very polarized right now, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So it's really like, for me, it's creating the trust in government where it's a trusted source, because for so long we have not been trusted, and for good reason. Like I don't blame anybody, especially when you have, dejected staff who are just tired because of the rigmarole and the bureaucracy, and then nobody's listening to them. So you got to listen to the same people complain over and over again. By the time you get to somebody who really needs help, you're like, look, what do you want? Right? And that's
for
off-putting.
Sure.
It's off-putting, right? So it's like creating space where government workers get the resources. I'm talking about our civil service. I'm not talking about our managers and our executive levels. I'm talking about civil servants get the financing, they get the resources that they need to live comfortable lives in their jobs so that they can fully execute the mission of the agency. That will create more trust in the government. Having actual people in your elected official positions who work their behinds off visibly and behind closed doors to ensure that the community is heard, is seen, is listened to. That, I think is going to bring more people into the fold where they start to trust government again. When you can get that, then you can start to unify people, not based on race or religion or creed, but on investment in the community, then I think that's where I've won.
Got it. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's like, I thought we were going to get like super specific into policy, but I like that a lot, actually.
We can't even get there yet.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
For sure. We're going to be wrapping up soon. And one of our last questions following that up is, what are your...
Here, my son. What's wrong with you? It's the new remote interviews now.
Oh, yeah.
That's how it is.
That's okay, though.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's life. So our final question was, what are your greatest strengths that you think will have an impact if you were to get into office?
Yeah. I think for me, it's my commitment to transparency and accountability. It is really bringing the community with me through this journey and to educate, engage, and empower them to leverage their vote and get what they need on a local level from city government. It really is going to be, I think one of my superpowers is bringing people together, being a bridge, and especially in diverse areas. And so it's bringing folks together on in a concerted effort to invest in our community. And I think there are opportunities not only for us to rage against the machine and transform government, but it's also an opportunity for us to utilize capitalism and to invest in our community too. It's just a matter of, bringing and bridging consensus and making sure that we're streamlining the talents and expertise on specific areas. And for me, I see myself as, the conduit to that.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a great way to kind of wrap this up a bit.
Yeah, definitely something I want more from my politicians. Or sorry, from my community.
Community people.
Let's
be consistent here.
Gotta remember.
But the last thing that we want to do is that we have a little tradition where when someone is on the pod, we like to end with like a statement of intent or something that you say that you are going to do, because it kind of, when you put it out there and it's recorded down, it gives a bit more like accountability behind the words, a bit more weight, and we'll definitely get back to you if you did it too. So if you have any, we can also give you a moment if you want, but if you have a statement of intent, please share with the Plan C.
Well, I think for 2021, my statement of intent is to really represent the community that I wish to serve. And that means by creating opportunities where I educate, engage, and empower individuals and collectives to really understand the intersection between politics, policy, and people, and to really become their own operatives as they leverage the votes that they make in these next critical years. Whether I win or not, I think I'm going to make that a statement that I will win, and that, I will bring my community with me into the city hall. I will make sure that you will always know where I am and know that I am bringing the community behind closed doors or in front of closed doors or out in the streets. We are going to do this together. And if not, I need to be voted out.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Manifest. Like, that's awesome. Real quick before we get off, you got anything you want to plug?
Happy New Year, everyone.
Oh, we never said Happy New Year to anyone. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Let's all make sure that we reflect on the last year. We are literally historical figures. We have survived a health pandemic, and people don't realize that we are in the history books as those in 1918, right? We are surviving a health pandemic, and we are going to come out of this learning the lessons and doing better than we did before. Do not leave 2020 with the same, or do not go into 2021 with the same mentality, with the same, commitments as you had in 2020. Let's go into 2021 and really bring our best selves, really invest in our communities in every way that we possibly can. And if we're struggling, let's tell one another we're struggling, because we don't know how hard 2020 has hit us until the future.
Yep.
Our PTSD has not manifested itself yet. And so we want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're taking care of our mental health, that we are reaching out to our brothers and sisters, whether figuratively or reality, to say we need a shoulder, we need, a break. If you're a parent, take that break, right? Like if you're a
Treat
caregiver,
yourself.
For sure.
treat yourself, right? Because we have to come out of this as survivors, but not just survivors. We have to come out of this as, whole people, or as whole as we can get ourselves. And 2021, I think, is my hope that we all come out of this as better people than we were in 2020.
You heard it here first. Wow, first people, resilience, that's what we're going to do. So I think I'm good. Cameron, you got anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Oh, no, not really. This is great.
All right, y'all.
Great opportunity.
Kenya, thank you so much. Thank you so much
Kenya
for
for the people,
joining
2021,
us.
District 40. Come on, young folks.
Yep.
So,
Kenya for
I
the
need
people 2021 on Instagram. It is spelled 4 on Instagram and Facebook, but on Twitter it's the letter 4 or letter number. See, this is we should just right here. See, look, great time to end now. So happy New Year, everyone. Be nice to everyone. I hope you've enjoyed season 1 of the Plan C podcast, and enjoy.